Hey guys, welcome to DIY Crafts. In this tutorial, let us see how to crochet a baby crop top or a emoji eye mask. So let's get started. Here I am using 4-ply yellow color yarn and a hook size of 4 mm. Pattern is same for baby top and eye mask, but for eye mask use 2.5 mm hook and 1 strand of wool. Here I am taking 2 strands of wool at a time to crochet. So begin with a slip knot and chain 15. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do subscribe and click on the bell icon to get the notifications for my latest videos. After making 15 chains, here is the pattern for row 1. So now let's start making row 1. So make chain 3. This chain 3 acts as first DC in our row 1. And now perform an increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Now we have 3 stitches in the first chain. Now perform a double crochet in next 4 stitches. After making 4 DC, now we are going to do a half double crochet in the middle. In the next stitch, it's a half DC. Watch carefully. This is the place where we are going to create a pattern. Next, it's followed by 3 single stitches. That's the second one. And the third single stitch. This creates the shape of a required pattern. Now this recurring pattern, that means the same pattern is going to be repeated but in a reflective way. So it's a half DC, again followed by 4 double crochet, 2, 3 and 4. Now we have come to the last chain in our base. So this is a turning chain. For this we are going to make 5 DC into the same stitch. I am showing each step in this video so that every beginner can follow the tutorial without any confusion. So it might be helpful for you to refer the video if you find the written pattern difficult to read. So after making 5 DC, this is how the pattern looks like. Using this 5 DC, we are going to create the shape of our emoji. Let's continue the pattern. Now make DC in next 4 stitches, followed by a HDC. Now that's the third double stitch and the fourth one. Now make a half double crochet represented as HDC. Next make 3 SC, that is 3 single crochet or 3 single stitch. Then again a half double crochet, followed by 4 double crochet, that is 1 DC in next 4 stitches. Now we have reached the first stitch, and this is the stitch where we have already made 3 stitches, that is chain 3 and 2 DC. And if you remember, the other end we have made 5 DC. So that to match the pattern, we are now going to make other 2 DC and slip stitch into the third chain to finish the row 1. This is how our work looks like after making row 1. Let's move on to row 2. This is the pattern for row 2. Now let's start making it. Same like in the row 1, make chain 3 and 1 DC into the same stitch. Now make 2 increases in next 2 stitches, that is, perform 2 DC in first stitch and 2 DC in the next stitch. Now make double stitches in next 3 stitches. Do half double crochet in next 2 stitches. That's first half DC and that's the second half DC. Now do single stitch in next 3 stitches. Now make HDC in next 2 stitches. Then DC in next 3 stitches. That's 2 and the third DC. Next comes the increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Another increase. Now we have reached the middle line of our work. So this acts as an alignment for you. Whenever you want to refer, you can refer to the middle line. So here we are going to perform 3 DC into the same stitch. Now the same pattern which is on the right is going to be continued on the left as well. So start by making 2 increases. That's the first increase, then the second one, so after these 2 increases, now we are going to perform DC in next 3 stitches. 1, 2 and the third one. Now it's half double crochet in next 2 stitches. That's the first one and here is the second one. Next, single stitch in next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2 and 3. Now again 2 HDC, that's 1 HDC and the second HDC, followed by DC in next 3 stitches. Again we have to make increases, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. That's the first increase and then the second one. Just like in the row 1, here we have begun with our chain 3 and DC into the same stitch, and we are going to close this by making one more DC into the same stitch and do a slip stitch into the third chain. Remember to insert your hook into the third chain, not into the first stitch. That is the first stitch and the previous one is the third chain. So insert your hook into the third chain. Make a slip knot and this completes our row 2. This is how our work looks like after completing the row 2. Now let's go to row 3. This is the pattern for row 3. Now let's make it. Again, begin with chain 3 and 1 DC into the same stitch. Now make 1 increase into the first stitch. Followed by 1 DC in the next stitch. Again another increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Now make DC in next 5 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 and the 5th one. Now make HDC in next 2 stitches. That's first HDC followed by another HDC. Here comes the small typical part. Now we need to join 3 stitches into 1 stitch. So insert the hook, grab the yarn, hold all the 4 loops on the hook and draw the yarn through all the loops. This is called a decrease. Okay, next continue by making HDC in next 2 stitches. Followed by 5 DC, that is 1 DC in next 5 stitches. That's 1. This is the second one. Third, fourth and the 5th one. Now we have to make an increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Now make 1 DC in the next stitch. Again we have another increase. Now we have reached to the middle point. So here is the place. Again we have to make 3 DC into the stitch. That's 1, 2 and the third one. So now the pattern continues in the same way as of in the right side. So continue by making an increase. Next it's 1 DC. Again another increase. Now make DC in next 5 stitches. That's the first one, second, third, fourth and the 5th one. Here comes HDC again. Make HDC in next 2 stitches. That's the first HDC. Now make the second HDC. Now we have to perform a decrease, that is 3 single stitches into 1 single stitch. The decrease here is performed in single crochet. This helps us to bring the curve for our pattern. So let's continue. Let's make HDC in the next 2 stitches. Now make DC in next 5 stitches. If you want to increase or decrease the number of stitches in the base line, I suggest you to add or less 2 stitches at a time. and the pattern changes accordingly. Further details are in the description box. So after finishing 5 DC, now we have to make an increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Now 1 DC, again another increase. Now make the last DC and slip stitch into the third chain. This DC has to be performed in the first stitch, and make the slip stitch to close the third row. This is how our pattern looks like after finishing 3 rows. If you are okay with the size, you can stop the pattern here itself. If not, here is the row 4. Now let's start making it. Again, begin with chain 3 and 1 DC into the same stitch. This row is little bit confusing, so please watch carefully and follow the pattern. Here is the first increase. Next, make DC in next 2 stitches. Another increase, that is 2 DC into the same stitch. Now DC in next 2 stitches. Again it's an increase. Now make DC in next 4 stitches. So that's the first DC, 2, 3 and 4. After this, make 1 HTC. So previous line we had a decrease. Again we are going to perform a decrease including the previous decrease in the middle. So insert into first HTC, decrease and another HTC. So all this put together we have another decrease in the 4th row. This defines the shape of our project. Let's continue by making 1 HTC followed by DC in next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now make an increase. Followed by 2 DC, DC in next 2 stitches. Again another increase. And 2 DC in next 2 stitches. Here is another increase. And now make 3 DC. Here is the corner stitch, so we are going to make 3 DC into the same stitch. Continue the same pattern which we have done in the right side. That is increase, 2dc, increase, 2dc, increase and 4dc. So don't get confused, this is little bit tricky, but if you are habituated to read the pattern, it will be very easy to follow. Here we are making 1 DC and the second DC. For better understanding, I suggest you to take the printout of a written pattern that is available in the description box. Put the written pattern next to you while watching the video or while making the project. This way it will be easier for you to work fast and accurate. Now let's get back to our pattern. So after performing an increase, now we have to perform 4 DC. Just count it. I've made 4 DC, then make 1 HDC. Fourth one, and the next one is half double crochet. Yes, now we are going to make a decrease, that is the 2 HDCs in the previous line along with the decrease are going to work as a single stitch in our 4th row. So that is the decrease. Now continue to make 1 HDC, 4 DC, that's 1, 2, 3 and the 4th one. Again the pattern continues, 1 increase and DC in next 2 stitches. Again we are making an increase, followed by 2 DC, and finally we are going to close the 4th row by making 1 DC into the first stitch and make a slip stitch into the third chain. This completes our base of our crochet top. Now seal the end by making chain 1 and cut the excess thread. Weave in the ends and the base is ready for the further process. To get the lovely emoji look, I am making red hearts. If you are planning for a normal smiley, you can make black eyes to it. Now let's see how to make the hearts. For this I am using cherry red 4-ply yarn and I am taking 2 strands at a time to crochet. Now let's begin by making a magic loop. It's just a twist around your hand. Now insert the hook into the loop and grab the yarn. Begin with chain 3 and make 2 triple crochet into the loop. That's the first triple stitch. Then make the second triple stitch into the loop. So this first chain 3 is also considered as a first triple stitch. So this makes a total of 3 stitches. Then we are going to make 3 double stitches into the loop. It's just a double stitch now. So that's the first one, second and the third one. Now use a small trick to get the tip of our heart, that's chain 1, triple stitch and chain 1. You can use the tail end to adjust the size of magic loop. Just watch carefully. You can pull them so that the loop becomes smaller. Now just continue with the pattern of 3 DC and 2 triple stitch. That's the first triple stitch. Now we are going to work the second one. All these stitches will be working into the loop. So once both the triple stitches are done, we are going to make 3 chain and slip stitch again into the loop. Now make chain 1 and cut the excess thread. Adjust the hole by using the tail end. Cut the yarn by leaving some length. This helps us to attach it to the base. Pull the tail end tight enough to close the magic loop. Here is the first heart ready. Make another one with the same pattern. Once both are done, attach them to the base with correct placement as shown. Repeat the same on the other side as well. Now with the help of a yarn needle, attach the heart to the base throughout the border. Here I am showing every step in detail so that it will be clear for you to understand. So don't bother with the length of the video. Just sew up and down throughout the border of the heart so it will stay in place. If possible, sew only into back loops for enhanced look. Sew it on both the sides, and in the final step make a knot with both the threads and weave in the ends. So finally make a knot and remove the excess threads. Now repeat the same on the other side as well. Now let's make straps. Identify the end stitches, that is where we have done 3 DC or the beginning of the 4th row. Insert your hook into that particular stitch Grab the yarn and make chain 1. Now make single stitch in next 2 stitches. Now make chain 2 and reverse the work. Now perform single stitch in next 2 stitches. Again chain 1 and flip the work. Make single stitch in next 3 stitches. Continue the pattern until you reach 10 rows. So after making 10 rows, here is how the work looks like. Now we need to perform a decrease, that is insert the hook in next 3 stitches. Grab the yarn and pull through all the loops. Now chain up until you reach the required length and cut the excess thread. Repeat the same on the other side as well. Here is how the pattern looks like after making the straps. Now we need to make the collar straps. So let's start making it. So for this, identify some 5th or 6th stitch from the center and make chain 50 or the chain of your required length. Repeat the same on the other side as well. Once it is done, make the finishings by weaving in the tail ends. This completes our baby crop top or eye mask. They are ready to flaunt now. The outcome is really lovely. Did you like them? Let me know in the comment section below. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, share it and subscribe to DIY Crafts.